So I've been asked recently what the employment landscape is going to look like across the United States and here in California going into 2021. I want to raise 4 issues. Number 1 is the Florida minimum wage. 2, California budget surplus. 3, what COVID-19 litigation may look like in 2021. And 4th, what a potential Biden administration impact will have on employers. Starting with number 1, the Florida minimum wage. I bring this up because the Florida minimum wage was just passed, Amendment 2, on November 3rd, 2020, passed as an initiative approved by the Florida residents. It's increasing the Florida minimum wage up to $15 an hour by 2026. Now, this is the first time that citizen-approved initiative raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And it was also a surprise for me to see that this increase took place in a relatively conservative state like Florida that voted for President Trump in this last election. And I think this is a good indication to employers across the United States about this minimum wage increase and the move to $15 an hour. We see a lot of support for that, and especially coming out of Florida with this election, it's important to note. The second item I wanted to discuss was the California budget surplus. Just here recently, towards the end of 2020, California surprisingly has a budget surplus of anywhere from, they're projecting $12 billion to maybe even potentially $40 billion here at the end of 2020. The forecast showed a deficit. Now, why this occurred is surprisingly, the pandemic did not have an impact on the higher wage earners and the wealthier people, basically the tax base. But the result is that it illustrates how the pandemic has really affected the low-wage earners in our workforce. And I think it's important for employers to note this, especially in certain industries, and to remember that these employees can't be left behind in the recovery of coming out of COVID-19. And also, that leads to my third point is what kind of COVID-19 litigation claims are we going to be seeing in 2021? For the most part, we haven't seen a whole lot of COVID-19 specifically related claims so far, but I expect we'll see a lot of claims related to paid leave and some of the safety issues we see coming out from Cal OSHA and OSHA requirements and workplace safety issues. But in terms of who caught COVID and where they caught it, I think there's a causation issue there. It's going to be really hard to prove where you caught it. So that won't necessarily be an issue. Here in California, too, we have some laws that makes the presumption that if somebody came into work and they did catch COVID-19, the presumption is that they caught it at work for workers' comp purposes. So I see that being an issue, the paid leave. And generally, when we see workers that have been laid off or furloughed and they don't see an opportunity to get into their job, or they've been laid off for a long period of time, we see them tend to gravitate towards litigation as a way to generate some income or some potential money for themselves. So sometimes we see increased litigation when the unemployment rate goes up. And then last and finally, the vaccine issue that's out there. Can employers mandate employees to take a vaccine if and when that's approved and developed? It's a big unanswered question right now, but I want to remind employers, just at the beginning of 2020, I was getting texts at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic about whether employers could take employees' temperatures. And that's been an issue that's been well resolved now. So I think we'll probably have some clarification on the vaccine and whether employers can mandate the vaccine for employees here in 2021. Now, what issues would the potential Biden administration impact? So we'll definitely see a push for the $15 minimum wage on a federal level coming out of a potential Biden administration. And Joe Biden has made it clear as well, he is not a fan of the arbitration agreements that forces employees to conduct any employment-related claims in arbitration outside of courts. We think there would be a push to ban those mandatory arbitration agreements. Also, he supported adopting an ABC test for independent contractors, similar to the ABC test we have here in California, on a national-wide basis to basically make it more difficult to classify workers as independent contractors. A potential Biden administration would also empower unions and support the NLRB to be more active. And finally, we would see an increase with employment investigations through the regulatory agencies, the Department of Labor, EEOC, and similar types of agencies to enforce those regulatory issues in the workplace. So those are some of the issues that I see impacting the employment law landscape going into 2021. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at zallerlaw.com. Thanks.